You're listening to the Limitless Leadership podcast, the podcast designed to help automotive repair shops learn how to lead, coach, train, and manage their team better by sharing proven techniques and thought-provoking interviews from industry leaders. Are you ready to transform your leadership skills by tapping into unrecognized potential to achieve limitless results? Let's get ready for liftoff. It's time to go from great to greater. Here's today's episode.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Limitless Leadership podcast. My name is Josh Parnell. I'm your host. I'm a leadership coach, trainer, and speaker, primarily serving in the automotive repair industry. So while this show is a leadership podcast, it is designed for everyone. Now, we have a great episode in store for you today. I have an exciting giveaway. If you listen to this episode, stay tuned because there is going to be an opportunity for you to win some free Limitless Leadership swag. You can find this episode, among others, on YouTube. If you go to my channel at The Bearded Leader, kind of easy to remember, The Bearded Leader. Go to The Bearded Leader, subscribe to that channel, and you have an opportunity to win some free swag today. In fact, some of the swag that you have a chance to win is this shirt that I'm wearing. Not this actual shirt, unless you want it, but I plan on giving you a brand new shirt, never worn, including a mug, as well as a journal, a hat, and a copy of my book, Leading a Legacy, How to Live Today to Make an Impact for Tomorrow. So keep listening, and I'll give you an opportunity to win all of that at the end of this episode. Now, I'm personally coming off the heels of attending the ASTA Expo in Raleigh, North Carolina. And folks, when I say that I met some incredible people in not just the industry, but in life in general, that might be an understatement. I mean, the people I met there were incredible. Awesome time to meet new folks, connect, grow, learn together, develop together, and ultimately just networking. And for me, it was another reminder that what this is all about is people. It's about people. And when we're leading and working with people, we have to remember that we have a level of influence amongst those around us and vice versa. And so as leaders, we need to ask ourselves, does my team feel the weight of my title or the energy of my leadership or the influence of my leadership? For a lot of us, we may be unintentionally and inadvertently leading in a way where we're not allowing for every team member's voice to be heard, for their opinions to matter, for their ideas to be considered. And so what does our influence look like amongst our shops, amongst our businesses? I believe that there are three major areas that a lot of companies are really missing the mark on, unfortunately, and that is effective onboarding, proper training, and consistent coaching. And today's episode is really devoted to proper training. What does training look like in your shop? What does training look like on a consistent basis? Is it on a consistent basis? For a lot of folks that we work with, a common objection or piece of feedback that we get is training doesn't work for my team, or they don't retain it, or training is just a waste of time and money, or really the biggest piece of feedback we get is I don't have time. I don't have time to train. I don't have time to train. And what we see quite often, especially in the automotive repair industry, is we have high-performing team members who do really well at their jobs. They've mastered these processes, and it gets them a promotion to a formal leadership role. And it's like going from a player to a coach. But a lot of us struggle to stay in that coach's seat because we see our players doing these processes that we've mastered. We see them doing them, quote unquote, incorrectly, or in other words, differently. And so we jump out of the coach's seat to go and save the day. And when we do that, we're inadvertently stunting everyone's growth and development, including our own. And so what Limitless Leadership focuses on is helping those team members stay in the coach's seat. Because it's the old adage of, I'm going to give a man to fish so he can eat for a day, or I'll teach him how to fish so he can eat for a lifetime. So what we do is we help these team members stay in the coach's seat so they can teach their team how to fish, how to lead, how to coach, how to manage, and how to train. All four are necessary, but all four are done different. And so today we're going to talk about training and why training is so important. I mentioned earlier how a lot of folks say they don't have time to train, which makes sense. A lot of us feel like we never have enough time in our day. I'd respectfully ask that you ask yourself, are you making time for your team? Are you making time for yourself and for your team? Daniel Goleman, who created and popularized the 6 leadership styles in his book Primal Leadership from the early 2000s, he said, many leaders told us they don't have the time in this high pressure economy for the slow and tedious work of training people and helping them grow. And really, that's really what we're here for. As coaches in the industry, we want to give you shop owners the gift of time. We want to give you business owners, managers, the gift of time. You have people who are dedicated to their craft, who are industry leading experts, who can help your team grow and develop. And one of those ways is training. I'll first share that 70% of training is typically forgotten after just 24 hours, and 90% is forgotten in only a week. And so consistent coaching beyond the training is a critical factor. We have to have coaching beyond the training. For a lot of us, it requires a paradigm shift, because when you think about training in the workforce, you might be thinking about that one time you sent your training or your team to training, let's say months ago. And I sent my team to training 7 months ago, 8 months ago. I believe that training should be synonymous with an athlete and practice. And, it's football season right now, which is going to tie into the opportunity to win some free swag, by the way. I got a football question for you. And so it's football season right now. And think about a 53-man roster. That's how many players are on a typical football team. You got 53 players. And the average football player actually only plays about 6 minutes per game. So you got 53 players. Of course, your quarterbacks are playing about half the game, but you got your long snappers, your punters, your kickers, your special teams players, your utility players who may only see a minute or two, maybe no minutes, depending on the player or the game. And so your average player across an entire roster only plays about 6 minutes per game. But think how many hours and hours of practice are going into that 6 minutes of game time. The average football game lasts just over 3 hours, but if you tally up all the time when the ball is actually in play, it only amounts to a mere 11 minutes. So just to go a little deeper, first we got some players who only play on average about 6 minutes per game, but to go even deeper, the ball is actually only in play for 11 minutes. So why is a football team training so hard and so much for those 11 minutes? For a lot of these folks, coaches especially, recognize that when you're building a team and developing a team, you're constantly investing in your team and pouring in to your team. So when that team member moves on to another shop, another business, or maybe unfortunately we have to let them go for whatever reason, or maybe they leave on their own accord, we're not necessarily frustrated by their departure. We're actually applauding their departure when we can help them grow and develop into a better leader, a better team member, and they can go and do bigger and better things for themselves and their family. So we get to applaud their departure. So it's a perspective shift that we need to make. And with perspective, the way that we view things drives the way that we do things. But when we do this, we're not having to rebuild. We simply have to reload. And for a lot of us, we feel like we're in constant rebuilding phase because we can't keep a team member. It costs shop owners 6 to 9 months of a team member's salary to replace them. And we say, I just can't keep this guy. He's not trainable. He's not coachable. Or I keep losing team members, or I pour into them and I invest in them and I train them and then they leave. Are we doing this consistently? Are we training them like an athlete and practice? Or are we treating training like a once a year thing? We have to focus on consistency. Consistency is going to win the day. There's a quote from Bruce Lee. He said, "I fear not the man who has practiced 10,000 kicks once, but I fear the man who has practiced one kick 10,000 times." Are we pouring into ourselves and pouring into our craft and really developing ourselves to where we are truly masters at what we do? His quote kind of lines up with the rule of 100, which states that if you spend 100 hours a year, which is only 18 minutes per day, in any discipline, you will actually be better than 95% of the world in that discipline. So are we spending time practicing 10,000 different kicks, one time? Or are we taking one kick? Are we taking one skill, one phone greeting, one check-in process, one sales presentation, and practicing and training and practicing and training over and over and over again? We don't have to get ready if we stay ready. Another quote that I love comes from Usain Bolt. He said, "I trained 4 years to run 9 seconds, and some people quit after a couple months when they don't see results." And I think for a lot of us, we need to do a better job as leaders of presenting what a training environment looks like in our shop. We can create cultures of training and coaching and accountability and leadership in our shop. The idea of training should be a welcomed opportunity. And so if training strikes fear in those that you're leading, you're likely missing a major opportunity to train properly and train effectively. Team members get so worried about proving themselves rather than improving themselves. And so as leaders, if we create a safe place, space, and platform that's built on an understanding that makes that mistakes and failures are going to happen, and acknowledge and recognize that failures are simply life's tuition for success, then the focus shifts to being fixated on a culture of improving rather than proving. And this is where we can start treating training like an athlete treats practice. It's consistent. When we train and train properly, we create efficiencies and productivities in our shop to create more time. And with more time comes more training. And with more training comes more time. It's this cycle. But a lot of us train once, we get more time. What do we do with that time? We spend it on scrolling on Facebook, checking our Instagram. We'll go have some water cooler talk with the guys. Are we utilizing our time wisely? So today I'm going to talk about a particular method that I learned about a year ago. And so a lot of us might be familiar with the do, show, tell, review, the show, tell, do, review approach, where we show a team member, we tell them how it works, and then we do it, and then we review it. But this is kind of it's a little bit of a play on that, but this is the MAWL training method. It's an acronym, MAWL. I learned this on a great podcast about a year ago, and it's called the MAWL method. And I started implementing this in my coaching, and we're seeing significant growth and development from proper utilization of the MAWL training method. The acronym MAWL stands for Model, Assist, Watch, and Launch. And so the way I'll explain this in automotive repair lingo is, let's say we are hiring someone to become the check-in process guru. This person is going to be our check-in process king or queen, and we want to groom them into being the master of this particular process. So when we hire them, we provide clarity and direction, because remember, those are the two things that each and every person deserves, especially professionally, is clarity and direction. I often say it, if you think about a job that you've either left or lost, you likely didn't have both clarity and direction in that job. And so our responsibility and obligation as leaders is to create safety and trust so that we can provide clarity and direction. So when we're hiring someone, if we're effectively onboarding, we're going to give them a list of responsibilities that they find in their job description. We're going to be very clear and direct with them that you are going to be the check-in king or queen for this particular role. So we're grooming you to be a master of this particular responsibility. Even though you have other responsibilities, this is the one that we're going to be primarily focusing on during your onboarding process. So if I'm training someone properly, utilizing the MAWL method, this is an example of what this could look like. Let's say I hire Joe. Joe is going to be our check-in king. I let Joe know that he is going to be groomed to be the check-in king. He's very familiar with this responsibility because I begin modeling for him what an effective check-in looks like with a guest. Guest comes in, I'm asking a lot of questions. I'm trying to get as much information I can that I can provide to his technician, that the technician can get the vehicle repaired sooner rather than later, and I can simply be a liaison between technician and guest to sell this ticket, right? But during the check-in process, I need to make sure that I am dotting all my I's and crossing my T's, and I'm modeling for Joe what an effective check-in process looks like. So when I model this for him, I'm going to model this for him for maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks. It's going to be some time. A lot of us hire someone and we'll kind of show them what to do. We're gonna ask them to watch, to listen, to observe, ask questions for the first half a day, first day or two, and then after a day or two, they're gonna start doing it themselves with our assistance. And then after a few days, hey, we're ready to let them go, let them do their thing, right? Unfortunately, that does happen. But what happens when we do this is we're really throwing them in the fire. We should not expect that they're going to retain all of this information in the midst of learning your shop and your culture and your new team members in this environment where they're uncomfortable. But we want to embrace that discomfort because growth and comfort can't coexist. But we don't want to get them too uncomfortable where they feel like they're being thrown in the fire, because if they're thrown in the fire, they're going to get burnt out. It's not lost on me the irony of this correlation of you get thrown in the fire and you get burnt out. Well, yeah, you're going to get burnt out because you're not effectively onboarding, properly training, and consistently coaching. So let's just say that I'm going to model for Joe what the check-in process looks like for 3 weeks. After 3 weeks, I'm going to move into the next phase of the MAL method, which is the assist phase. This is where I start assisting Joe in the check-in phase along with him. So I'm kind of locking arms with him, walking alongside him as we check in guests together. I went from being the primary check-in person or the only check-in person that he's just watching, observing, listening, and asking questions. Now he's checking guests in with my assistance and my support. He's not checking a guest in by himself. Can he? Yeah, but should he? I don't believe he should right now. I want to make sure that we're effectively onboarding, properly training, and consistently coaching. So let's just say that we are going through the modeling phase, if you will, for 3 weeks. He's watching me ride a bike at this point. Then I shift from him watching me ride a bike to now he's riding the bike with training wheels on for the next 3 weeks. That's the assist phase. So 6 weeks go by, and then we allow Joe to start checking guests in by himself. This is the watch phase where I sit back and watch. I'm in this kind of support role from afar. I'm watching, I'm observing. I'm also implementing one-on-ones on a consistent basis. On episode 36, if you go back and listen to that particular episode, How to Lead One-on-Ones, you'll have a better context or understanding of what this could and should look like. Because as I am delegating this responsibility to him, he's going to be meeting with me on a consistent basis. I think a good cadence is every other week for one-on-ones in an automotive repair shop. And so I get to ask a lot of questions. Joe, how's it going so far? How are you feeling about this process? What were some of your latest wins with the check-in process? What are some of your greatest challenges that you've been having? What have you learned up to this point that you're going to do differently moving forward? What changes do you think we should make? What do you think we should start doing or stop doing? How can I train you better? How can I lead you better? How can I serve you better? How can I prep you for success better in this process? Notice that every question I'm asking, these are just example questions, but every question I'm asking warrants some dialogue beyond just a simple yes or no response. I'm asking questions in a way where I'm having him problem solve and critically think and think outside the box. I want to make sure that I'm serving Joe well and I'm not overwhelming or underwhelming him with work. I want to make sure that his stress levels are good. I mean, I'm checking on Joe the person, not just Joe the check-in king, right? And so after 3 weeks of modeling, 3 weeks of assisting, let's call it 6 weeks of watching. Let's let 12 full weeks go by. I model, I assist, I watch for 6 weeks, paired that with the one-on-ones. And then after 12 weeks, a full quarter of the year, 12 weeks have gone by. And now Joe is ready to launch. Remember, model, assist, watch. Now he's launching. He's going to launch into the check-in king. The king that we groomed him for, he is now the check-in king. Imagine a world or a shop where after 12 weeks, let's say you have another hire that you just brought on board, and we want them to learn the check-in process. After 12 weeks, guess who's going to be training this new hire on the check-in process? It's Joe. Joe is going to be training someone after just 3 months of being on the job in a new environment, in a new role, new team members, new process. But when we can launch it allows us as leaders to be able to focus on other priorities, on other team members, to continue to invest in those team members. I want to make sure I'm clear when I say if I'm focusing on Joe, it doesn't mean I'm focusing on others. But when I've properly trained Joe through an effective onboarding process, and I'm consistently coaching Joe through my one-on-ones, I'm regularly pouring into people. Retention is going to go incredibly high, and I'm not just talking about information retention. I'm talking about team member retention. They're engaged. 70% of employees, regardless of the industry, are disengaged at work because they don't feel seen, they don't feel valued, they don't feel heard, understood, acknowledged. So we get to create engagement by empowering new team members with processes. Because as leaders, we are leading people, and those people are leading processes. I mentioned earlier about retention, but remember, repetition breeds retention. And think about 12 full weeks of repetition for Joe. He is ready, able, capable, competent, confident to be the check-in king for your shop. So this is an example of how we can utilize the MAWL training method, MAWL, model, assist, watch, and launch. These weekly numbers I gave, 3 weeks, 6 weeks, they're all hypothetical. They're all subjective to you and the process, the team member, and your shop. But utilize this method when training team members on a consistent basis. Don't forget that training should be synonymous with an athlete in practice. We're always training, we're always coaching, and we are effectively onboarding along the way. So thank you for being here, folks. Each week, we look to transform, each episode, we look to transform our leadership skills by tapping into unrecognized potential to achieve limitless results. So if you haven't done so yet, please be sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another podcast episode. And if you like what you hear, please leave a review. And now let's get to the free swag. How can you win some free swag? This is how. It is football season. We just talked about football season. I'm going to ask that you go to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and listen to this episode. But in this episode, in the comments section, I'm going to ask that you predict the winner and the loser of this year's Super Bowl. So this contest will be open for the entire month of October. So anyone who puts their guess, their correct guess of the winner and the loser of this year's Super Bowl will win some free Limitless Leadership swag. It is the shirt that I'm wearing. It is the mug that I'm drinking out of, the hat on the desk here, a journal, and a book. And just to be clear, you're not going to actually win the stuff that I'm wearing or drinking out of, but if you want to, I mean, that's just, hey, we got some more questions that we need to talk about. But anyway, feel free to drop your guesses in the YouTube channel to win some free swag. And if you don't want to wait until the Super Bowl results to get my book, Leading a Legacy, you can head on over to Amazon and find it there. Now, with all that being said, I want to thank you again for being here. Have a great day, everyone. Don't forget to smile today. Tell your loved ones how much they mean to you. I'm Josh Parnell, reminding you to keep leading